We're at the entrance of our Meadowood Park. Property was established way back at around the very early 30s, or probably 1930. It started off originally as the name was Nature Lovers Camp, and actually, in fact, it was a nudist camp, and it has lots of good stories about it. The after that, and none of those facilities were here then it became the Pinewood 40 cabins. I think there were 40 cabins when it was the Nature Lover Club too. And you could rent a cabin for $3 a day. You got a whole cabin and you could probably get lots of people in. And they all had fireplaces. And it was a very active camp. There's a building here in front of me, which is the remnants of an old barn. I suspect back in the Nature Lover Club's days it was used to house the horses, because they did a lot of horseback riding here. And then maybe after that, when it became Pinewood, it was used for storage and maintenance. Just behind that is a private home that actually was a doesn't look too old, but actually it was a stagecoach stop years ago. And that's sort of logical, because Hell's Kitchen, which is a boarding house, was just down the street. The history we're talking about starts back in very early 30s. In fact, I think 1930, when first it was the nudist camp, and then it became Pinewood, and then the buildings were all taken down because they weren't of any use anymore. And then the township picked it up in, I think, 1970. It's a 48-acre tract, and it's a lovely piece of property. There's a circular trail. I think it's about almost, I don't know, almost 1.5 miles around, which is really a lovely walk. You go in here and down by the stream and up on the mountain and then back down again. And it's just a nice park. Right now, the township has a study going on to come up with a plan of exactly how it should be preserved from now on for their greatest use. The stonework you see here, the present entrance, that was built after the Nature Club left the area, and that's when Pinewood built these different structures, and there's more down by the main building down below. Yeah, we're up in Meadowood. We're just we're working our way across the top of the hill, and then we're going to go down the valley and take a look at the entrance and talk about that later. I was just trying to point out the fact that, as I've said once before, there were 40 cabins on this property, and the only thing that's left now are just the chimneys. The cabins were burnt down when they were no longer needed, burnt down on purpose, so they didn't have to pay taxes on them. So there's, I don't know, there's probably at least 10 chimneys left, and plus a very large chimney that's down at the casino, which we'll get some shots of shortly. We're almost at the highest point in Meadowood Park. This film shows the very crest of the hill, and that's where the old camp road came through here, went over there, and then finally went back down to Old Mill Road. It was just a circular road. It came in the main entrance and came all the way up through here and returned back. And all the cabin sites and some of the other recreational areas were along the road. This particular field that we're in is, it wasn't a formal recreation area, but it was used there. At one time, they did a lot of horseback riding over here, and this was used for getting the horses a chance to open up just a little bit. This is the largest chimney on the property. In fact, this is where the largest building on the property was. This is the area that there was a very large building here. I've heard it called a casino. I've heard it called a lodge. But basically, it was just a rather large building with lots of room inside to hold dancing and entertainment and even, you know, live bands and that sort of stuff, just to help with the entertainment of the people that came here to stay in the cabins. I don't know. I guess that pretty much explains it. All I can remember about it is the fact that it had a red roof. In fact, every cabin in this whole park complex had red roofs on them, and they were really quite attractive. Sort of brightened up things a little bit, and they were a pretty good deal. You could rent a cabin for $3 a night, and you got the whole cabin. And of course, they had all this other entertainment going on. Yeah, to try and further explain this rather large building, the roof line went this way and down that way, and this was the big hall out here, and there was a little annex out the back that sort of served as a kitchen and a utility room. Indications you can see in the back of the chimney where actually there's a flue line that came in there that where the kitchen stove vented up the same chimney. You may notice in this particular foundation picture that the hearth seems to be way up high, the same as you'll notice on the other pictures of the different cabin foundations or chimneys that are around. All the fireplaces are up high. That's because all of the cabins and even this building, the floors were raised up because they didn't necessarily put them on level ground, so they got the floor up high enough. They didn't necessarily grade the property around them. They just put them where they were, so the floor was up this high like it was here, and back on the other side where the ground was higher. You usually just walked in. The cabins always had a little porch on the front, and you walked in, and rather than go through all sorts of grading problems and landscaping, they just built them with the contours of the ground, and then they raised the floors so that it would facilitate the contours. They had an extremely large pool. It was big. It was a cement pool, but you know, it's not like the cement pools we know nowadays. It was just went with the contours of the ground. It was deep on the low side of the ground and shallow on the upper side of the ground. And the water was all pumped up from the stream, which was an extremely pure stream. And it was, I imagine, a little cold, but it was just a great place to swim. It was big. It was almost like a lake in a sense. I guess it was not exactly round, but it probably was 200 foot one way and 300 foot the other way, and started off in very shallow at practically 0 up to 3 foot, and then went down to 9 or 10 foot on the lower area where the diving boards were. This is a tennis court area that goes back to the pine wood era of this property, when the cabins were used for just rented by people that mainly come out from New York to enjoy the country. Was 2 tennis courts here, and also, I think, yeah, 2 double-sided hardball courts, if that's the right term, where you smack the ball against the wall. And actually, after we first picked up the park, the recreation committee fixed this thing up. Still in pretty good shape, believe it or not. And it was really some of the first tennis courts we ever had, and people enjoyed it for quite a few years. Now we have the advantage of having courts in Mendham, plus the fact that there's some at the middle school. So this one is no longer needed and probably not necessary to maintain, because it does require a lot of maintenance. We're down just off the tennis courts below the main parking area. This is the trail here that will take us on down to the streams and some other interesting things. But another interesting point is this is an intersection of a trail that goes out there to Old Mill Road. And, you know, if you want to take a walk without climbing up and down hills, that's really the best way to come in, because if you come in this way, you got to climb up the hill, and the same way if you go way up top, you got to climb up all those hills. So it's interesting that we got enough parkland here that you can sort of have a level entrance and a steep entrance. That way you get to see more and more things. This area all along the stream here, and even Meadowood Park, has a great nickname. It's called Skunk's Misery. And every resident that ever lived here, they were always very proud of the fact that they could brag to people that they lived in Skunk's Misery. And I think I'd brag about it too if I lived in a town with a name or a section of a name like that. Yeah, what we're trying to show here is rather difficult because it's long since non-existing, but this is the Kramer Mill Pond that ran the mill. There's a dam, part of a dam on this side of the stream, and then of course some more on the other, and of course it's long since been breached. And then from the dam down on the other side of the stream is a mill race that powered the mill. There's 2 Kramer mill sites. This is one we always call the Upper Kramer Mill, and another one is down the street, right where the stream crosses Old Mill Road. These buildings here are not really on the parkland. They're privately owned. They're on the DeVore property. The house that you can plainly see was actually the center section of it was actually the Kramer sawmill. It's been added to the right and left, forward, and also the back, and turned into a residence. Right behind it is a building that used to be a tavern and a stop for travelers out this way, and it's called Hell's Kitchen, which I think is a interesting name. The old pipe you see along the trail here, this was a supply pipe for the big swimming pool we were talking about. It's a 4-inch galvanized pipe. There was an old pump house down on the stream that used to pump the water up into the pool, and it ran all the time, so that the water in the pool was always very pure. And of course, this is an extremely pure stream we're going to. It's a trout producing stream. and we'll get down to it in just a minute. I mentioned before that the trails are all marked. This is the township's marking symbol. This means when you have a dot here and that there, it means that the trail turns that way. If you have this and another one there, it means it goes that way. And if you just have this, it means it's straight ahead. All right, this is the remnants of the old pump house. And this is the actual pump that used to pump the water up through that 4-inch pipe all the way up to the pool. It's quite a little piece of machinery. It used to be powered by what we call a one-lunger gas engine. A one-lunger engine is just a one-cylinder. That's where the one lung comes from, with a big flywheel, and it just goes. And it runs this, and then this rascal would push a lot of water. You got to remember, it was pumping up a 4-inch pipe for quite a rise, as much as, oh, I don't know, 150 foot, maybe 200 foot. We're down at the stream, and this is by far the most beautiful area in the park. This trail just turns the corner and goes back up into the highlands all the way along the stream, and it's just, I guess we ought to just call it a babbling brook. It's Burnett Brook. Just a little bit above it is called Dawson's Brook, but in this area it's Burnett Brook. Up a little higher, it used to power 3 different mill complexes. One of them having actually a sawmill, a grist mill, a cotton mill, and once again a distillery. But this is just a nice section to go through, and the stream from here on up just comes babbling down, and it's really pretty. And it is I mentioned before, it is a very pure stream. It's a trout producing stream. The state has 3 different qualifications on stream. You have a trout stream, a trout maintenance stream, and a trout producing stream. Well, of course, the trout producing stream is by far the best stream, and that's the one that has the purest water. That's where the female fish come up at 2 different times, by the way. One of our trout comes up in the spring, and one comes up in the fall, and they lay their eggs, and then their little babies grow up in these streams until they get big enough to head on down and enter into the real world. But it's nice to have these streams, and our township is just so fortunate to have so many headwaters of the different rivers that it's just so much fun to live in a town where there's just beautiful streams no matter where you go.